Hello, everyone. My name is Billy Jones, and I'm a proud member of the South Florida Writers Association. We bring you the September 2020 Author Showcase Series, a virtual experience. Our author of the month is Anika S. Madison, author, Step-by-Step Caregivers Guide for Medical Appointments and Hospital Visits. The South Florida Writers Association is a nonprofit special interest group that specializes in bringing together published and emerging writers, and we encourage you to join us. Visit our website at the link below for more information. At this time, I'd like to introduce our esteemed author. Anika S. Madison is a published author, transformative speaker, award-winning short story writer, freelance writer, blogger, and host of Journey into Passion with Anika S. on Everyday Folks Radio Network, which can be heard on Blog Talk Radio. She is also a freelance writing contributor to the Gospel Truth and the Faith Heart magazines. Anika is a member of the South Florida Writers Association, where she served on the organization's board in 2018-2019. She is also a member of the Bethel Baptist Church, where she serves as a leader of the newly formed Task Force Ministry, as well as the Media Ministry. Anika's first book, Step-by-Step Caregivers Guide for Medical Appointments and Hospital Visits, is now available where books are sold, Amazon, and through our local vendor and supporter, Books and Books. The book was written to provide a resource for caregivers to have during the often difficult journey of medical appointments and possible hospital visits. Welcome to the September 2020 showcase, Anika Madison.
Thank you so much, Billy. I really appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity for the South Florida Writers Association. Thank you to President Beverly Malaysia Haig, Rocio, everybody on the board, and the organization as a whole. I'm glad to be back because I've been away for a little while, and it's really great to be back. So thank you so much. 2014, I got over a really bad illness. It really took me out. It took me out more than I was able to really handle. Then I decided I'm going to go back to writing. That was my first love, and creating was really something that was in me. Fast forward to 2016, I call it my year of leaps. I had an opportunity presented to me by Dr. Billy Jones to actually host my own blog talk radio show. And I also launched my blog that year, and Dr. Billy Jones gave me my first speaking engagement. Now for me, that was out of the ordinary because I don't really like to put myself out there, but I decided that this was my time. Then the same year, something else happened I was not expecting. 2 words changed everything. Stage 4. I couldn't believe it. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew one thing. The role reversal was about to occur. I wasn't ready for it, but life doesn't care what you're ready for, you just gotta go. And I realized that at that moment, I became a caregiver. And I knew that I had to be there for the man that had my back most of my life, and that was my dad, who I love with all my heart. So I said, okay, this is it. This is what we're gonna do. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had never been a caregiver before, but I knew one thing. I knew that I loved my dad. So I made sure that the first thing I did was get as much information as I possibly could. Then I organized the information, and I made sure that I stood on the fact that I had actual benefit information in my background in health benefits. So I had about 6 or 7 years of that kind of background where I helped people with their benefits. And so I realized that all that information and the fact that I was a natural nurturer, I was going to make this thing happen. So fast forward to a doctor's appointment. I'm sitting there, I'm organizing my papers, doing what I normally do. And I look over at my dad, and he has this concerned look on his face. And then he looks down and he looks back at me. Because as you can imagine, you're sitting there, you have stage 4 cancer, you have other medical issues, you have all this information coming at you, and now you've got to figure out what to do. And then he looked at me at that moment, and I realized he was saying to himself, she's got this. And I did. I had this. Why? Because I knew what I had to do. I knew at that moment I had to make sure things were organized. I had to make sure I had a relationship with the medical providers. I had to make sure that everything that he needed had to be done. That's a tall order, but I knew it could be done. So the doctor comes in and he looks at the paperwork and he says, I wish everybody was this organized. I wish everybody had all the information this easily so it would make my job so much easier. And I realized that that was something that I heard a lot. And at that moment, my book was born. I didn't have a title, but I knew I had to write it. I didn't know when I was going to have the time, but I knew it had to be done. And so I wrote during chemotherapy appointments, physical therapy appointments. You know, you just fit it in because your passion drives you. Journey to Passion with Anika S, right? That's the name of my show. Everything about what I do, passion drives me. And so I got it done. But what I realized, there's three major things that I knew were so important. Number one, self-care. Now that sounds crazy because you're thinking, you're a caregiver. Why would self-care be so important? Well, if you want to be the best caregiver you can, you need to take care of yourself first. So when I wrote this book, I had first-time caregivers in mind. And one of the things I wanted to do was take them from the point where they first found out. What are your thoughts when you first find out that you're going to be a caregiver? Then I want you to go through the moments where you have to gather information, because being armed with information is so critical. And that's number two. Self-care is the moment where you take care of take care of what you have to deal with first. Making sure you have your own medications, your own physical therapy, whatever you have to get done, get as much of it as you can done before you start the journey, because you're going to be giving a lot of time to the patient. So I thought about that first, getting yourself together, arming yourself with information, getting it from the patient themselves, medical providers, family members, friends, whomever you can, to gather as much information, because really you want to be the person that has the most information in the room. Whether it be a medical appointment, a hospital, a lab visit, you want to be the person that has the most information other than the medical provider themselves. And then the third thing is organization. I'm telling you, if you are organized during this journey, you have given yourself a really good chance, because the organization helps free time, and you want to have as much time as possible for care. So when you think about going to an actual office visit, if you have the information and it's organized, it frees up more time for the medical provider to provide care to the patient, and it frees up more time for questions. Because we all know what it is. You go in there and they want to get the information within 5 minutes, less is better. So if you can just get to it and get on with it, it's so much better, especially in emergency situations, because really you have a 2 minute time limit in those kind of situations. So you want to be able to just hand it off. And so I realized that if I have those three things going, I am 50% there as far as a caregiver. And then the other thing is just having those moments where the patient that you're caring for knows you have them, knows that no matter what, you're there. And that's something, and they have things to take off of their plate, because there's so much they have to think about. And now with you there, there's so much less that they have to think about. And that was my job. And I took it seriously. And all of that information together helped me to write step-by-step caregivers for medical appointments and hospital visits. Now, what I also do is I take you through various situations. You have the primary care visits, you have lab appointments, you have physical therapy, possible hospitalizations, emergencies. You're going to handle those in different ways. But there's going to be 5 different things that's going to be common, right? In each scenario. They're going to want to know who the patient is and make sure they have a date of birth. So these are the questions that you get at all the time. Every appointment, they ask the same basic questions. So I realized that on the notes, any notes that I'm actually going to give to them to put on their charts, I make sure to have the name and date of birth at the top. That way, if any pages get missing, they know what page to put back on the chart. Very simple. And these little tidbits, that's another thing that I've done in the book. I like to give little tidbits, things that you may not think about. I like to let you know, even down to having warm clothes during a lab visit. In Florida, you layer. You go in with your shorts, and then when you're in there, you put on your sweater and your socks and whatever else you need. I like to have those little tidbits because it really helps you save time. And time is very important. And then the next thing that they're going to ask you during the visits is they're going to ask you about medications. You want to be able to rattle them off. Now, especially in my case, he had a lot of different types of medications. So I had it separated into various types of medications so that everything will be in place. They knew what the cancer meds were, they knew what these meds were, and I wasn't trying to bother with trying to pronounce anything. I had them written down and I gave them over. I didn't try to memorize anything. I had them written down and gave them over. The memory thing, don't do that to yourself. Just have it organized and at your fingertips and ready to go. Then they're going to ask how they're feeling. Now, one of the things that I notice is that you don't really want to take over the conversation. You want the patient to speak for themselves, but you have to be the one to make sure they're honest. And so if they hold back, it's going to really mess you up later on. So you want to make sure they're honest. And then they're going to ask if there's been any changes in medications, and they're going to ask pain levels, So these are things that you need to have each and every visit. And so what I did in the book, the reason why I call it a step-by-step guide is because I'm literally taking you step by step. When you first learn that you're going to be a caregiver, to the moment you have to gather the information, to the moment you have to start going to the various office visits, after the office visits, the times in between where you have to get referrals, I take you through each and every step on the various types of visits. Now, am I giving you all the information? No, because everybody's condition is different. But I know that each of the information that I've given you is something that you're going to find the majority of the time. Everybody goes through these various different scenarios. Everybody deals with the medications. Everybody deals with how you're feeling, pain levels. These are across the board. And so it's kind of a heads up, and especially for those of you who are just starting this journey, because we all know that hindsight's 2020. So I give you sort of a heads up. I give you the step-by-step, and I'm also giving you something that I hope that you can when you take this information, you can organize it for yourself. And that actually took me to another step because I'm actually creating a course that's going to be associated with this book. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a guide that you can manipulate, because it's so much easier if you have something where you have the information on the patient, their medications, their doctors, their conditions, their medical history. You have it all in one spot. And so what I wanted to give you is a guide that you can manipulate yourself, and that information, and you can have it accordingly, so whatever it is for that particular patient, you'll have it all ready to go. Now, you may be thinking, why am I saying the patient? There's 2 reasons for that. Patience is key. You're going to need a lot of it. especially, and I have a whole section called on advocacy. I never needed patients more than when it came to advocacy. It is very difficult, especially when you love that person so much and you're dealing with, you're dealing with all different kinds of personalities, all different kinds of situations. And so it's kind of a dance. You have to be calm and nice and nicely tell them that this is not the way it's going to be today. He needs the following, and this is going to happen. And have a nice smile. So the patients, whew, you need it when you're being their advocate, and you need it when you're caring, because they go through different situations. They're cranky sometimes, they're upset sometimes, and you have to be empathetic and put yourself in their shoes and understand that this is difficult, and especially if you're dealing with a patient who may be terminal. That's a lot to grasp. That's a lot to deal with. And so just having that patience is so key. And then I say the patient, not your patient, but the patient. That is very important as well, because you have to have a relationship with the medical providers, and you don't want to take over their that kind of decision making. It's very easy to do. You picture yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning, something happens, you have to make a decision. Well, at that moment, you want to do as much as you can to help them, but you got to get to the medical provider. So you got to have those after-hour numbers, contact within the office. I talk about that in the book, just making sure that you have information available and ready 24 hours a day, including 24-hour pharmacies, 12 hours if you can't find the 24-hour, but you really want to have around the clock somebody there to help you as much as possible. And you want to have family members and friends who can help you. And during this time that we're dealing with right now, of course, you have to make sure of safety first. Make sure these people are well. Make sure that there's no issues. So you got to think about that. Then, of course, you have the telehealth visits. They're going to be a little different than in-person office visits, but the information is the same as far as providing information to them. And maybe you have to email it to them as opposed to just giving it to them right away. But everything is pretty much the same as far as all these different various visits. And another thing I like to do with my work is I like to give you those little tidbits that I talked about, as far as when you go into the hospital room for the first time, what kind of information do you need to write down right away? What kind of things you need to look for right away? How much does the patient take with them when they go into the actual room? I remember many times taking my dad's phone away from him before I left the hospital. He was not happy, but less is better, right? And then I brought it back the next day, because I went back to the hospital every day. So he was all right. But, there's certain situations you're going to do because you realize that it's best for the patient, and they're not going to be too happy about it, but that's your job. And so this whole experience really, really got me thinking that there's so many people out there, that there's certain things that they may not think about. There's certain information that they may not realize they really need. And so especially for the new caregivers, I wanted there to be something that you can get to right away. And I wanted to be able to just walk you through the process all the way through, actually going through the various visits. And of course, you never know. You may end up in the ER. You may end up in the hospital with the actual patient. So I wanted to make sure to include all of that, and even the physical therapy. You never know, right? And that's the thing that's about this journey. You don't really know what you're going to get into. So as much preparation as possible, as much information as possible, as much organization as possible is so key. and taking care of yourself along the way. That way you can be the best that you can be for them. And finally, I'm a creative. And then talking to you as far as the South Florida Writers Association, we're all creatives. We can't forget about that. It's very easy to let all that stuff go. But I was writing during chemotherapy appointments. I was writing during lab appointments. I was creating things. I was even doing church announcements while by his bedside. I had my phone and I had to wait for quiet moments. And when the quiet moments came, I went for it. You just kind of have to work with the situation, but you can't forget your own life and things that you really have dreamt of doing. May take longer. It's going to look a little different, but don't forget you, because you don't want to get into a point of any kind of resentment. And the person that you're caring for, that patient, they don't want you to resent them and they don't want to take away from your life. So make sure that you do that self-care and keep your creative life going as well. And so that's it. Step-by-step caregivers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Anika, as well, for sharing with us your incredible story and journey with your father. And out of that moment, you were able to not only assist him, but also birth an incredible work that many others will be inspired and find resourceful. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for watching our September 2020 Author Showcase Series and Virtual Experience. If you like all of these shows and what Anika has to offer, we have more authors coming in the months to come. And we have a series of archive shows that we have available on our YouTube channel as well. So check it out. Links are provided below to access more information about Anika S, her social media feeds, and places where you can purchase her work. Until next time, thank you for watching.